This is the Lydia and Spin with Lydia Lunch and Tim Dahl. We're sweltering, sweating, and the humidity is high. And it's
Yep.
not even the first day of summer yet, but that's all right. As
Yeah,
long as
well,
we
it
can
was
at
like
least say more
it,
Dahl.
it was cool and rainy for about a week straight. So now all
Well,
that
today it
wet.
rained. Today it rained for like 30 seconds.
Yeah, well, the problem is it's scorching heat, the sun, so all that wet ground is evaporating into the air, so it's just that much more
Is my
humid.
is my skin not looking fabulous because of
Ooh. Oh yes. You got the Sicilian glow.
Well, I got the Sicilian bank and it needs some filling right here, honey. Coming to
Roar.
the left.
That's
Prop
a good
pocket.
one. That's a good one. Well, I like to laugh in these horrific times. It's like things. Basically, everyone's saying for a while. I was definitely saying for a while that this summer's gonna be on fire. Like meaning, like Trump's gonna do all these moves to provoke people to maybe declare martial law, and then now it's just other stuff's adding on. Like this guy who assassinated these Minnesota
Oh yeah.
senators. He's nuts. And then now are we going? We're going to a war in Iran. I mean, what?
Well, I mean, even a lot of the total cockocracy, nobody wants it. I mean, didn't we try this before and it failed and it went on forever and ever? And the thing is, it's not just a war with one country when this starts, and even Putin claimed, oh, he should mediate because I mean he's got ties to Iran. And of course, little Mr. Big Man, Mr. Egotist, mediate your own stuff. I'll end the war on the first day. Grocery prices will go down. And in the meantime, what does he do? Erects two fucking phallus flagpoles and behind himself in a dribble fest of absolute dementia, which you can't even at this point put two sentences together. I think it's just Clowntown,
Oh,
USA.
beyond. Well, there's definitely a inner war in MAGA about it because there's definitely a MAGA demographic that wants to be nationalist isolationists, and this doesn't really stick with that plan at all.
Well, and he hired a bunch of knuckleheads, but even the knucklehead that even Tulsi, which is kind of a good name, like Tulsa.
Yeah.
Who knows what report to believe? I mean, Iran is. Oh, they just want nuclear advancement because fossil fuels are not detrimental again enough. Nobody knows what anybody's doing when half the world already has nuclear war weapons.
Not half
What
the
the
world.
fuck? I mean, it's
Not half
it's
the
like
world.
saying we need gun control in America when all of the bad guys already have the guns. It's like, how are you
Well,
going to control it?
well,
What are you going to
there's
control right now?
there. Well, of course, there's that point, but
Prevent
but but
any
but no,
further
but the
damage.
Obama plan with Iran that Trump destroyed and scrapped, there was surveillance that they agreed upon. They said yes, you can come and check out our plants, our labs, whatever. You
Yeah,
can do
well,
any,
I mean, and excuse me,
and that
but
was just ripped up. That was just ripped
there's
up.
a lot of mountainous terrain there that anything could be hiding under 300 feet deep in the ground. The same way that we could not win in Afghanistan when we wanted the lithium because it was too deep to dig out, and
Yeah.
also double dealing with the poppy fields. What can we say? And look,
And yeah, well,
I mean, the thing is,
tensions
we
are
don't
high.
need that. Right now there is so much conflict everywhere, so much ignorance. And I mean, other than confronting the cockocracy and overthrowing 80% of the governments and replacing them with what? I don't know.
It's just a shit show, and we will see what happens.
And Mother Nature, as always, as I've been saying for 30 or
Well,
more
there's
years,
that
is
too.
getting
Yes.
pretty violent against the men who have been causing her violence. 117 degrees in India. How many tornadoes this week? Floods everywhere, extreme heat, forest fires, hail the size of snowballs. I'm just praying for the big one to wipe out Mar-a-Lago.
Well, that might happen. I mean,
But
the
we
what?
know that prayer gets you nowhere, so I know it's facetious, but I
Well,
do it anyway.
the weather models are claiming it's going to be one of the worst hurricane seasons
How
in a
can it
while.
not?
I mean, the oceans are just not cooling down enough, so that's just rocket fuel on a
And I do
storm.
love that they're called her. Okay.
I love a good storm as long as as long as I'm not
I do too, as
doesn't kill
long as it
me.
doesn't blow me away.
Right. I
I mean,
mean,
we're kind of, I don't know how, but we're kind of safe here. I don't know why I feel, in spite of the fact that New York does have earthquakes, quite a few, all minor though.
oh, they
In
also
spite
have
of the fact
tornadoes every now and then.
tornadoes every now and then, there are floods every now and then, there are blizzards every now and then, but I mean, this is just daily life anywhere on the planet.
Sebastian, does France get tornadoes?
No, if we would get a tornado, it would be a sort of small,
Yeah, it's not
very
really.
like it'll wipe out a village and then, or the center part of the village, and then it sort of disappears, and then we never have that again for like months or years, or
And
no,
by
it's
the way, may I just introduce the ultimate road dog, Sebastian Greppo, who runs my Facebook, manages my tours, has now been promoted. He's going to get a bigger raise to the associate dean of the University of Chicago, Paris,
Amazing.
where I have instigated and continue to instigate a series of avant garde performances. Sebastian, my life without you would not be the same. You take care of so many details.
Yes,
And
he
I,
does, and he gets
even
around.
recording this intro.
He gets around. I've run into Sebastian randomly in Chicago once. I mean, remember that?
oh yeah.
I was like
Is a
Sebastian.
snake occasionally, but and also one thing about Sebastian, besides being an accountant extraordinaire, thank God for not sending me the bill I owe you for the last 2 years yet. He is a gourmand extraordinaire. But so are you, Tim. I
Yes.
mean, Sebastian will find a Michelin star restaurant
Oh,
on a farm in the middle of nowhere on the way from one place to another, and it
I
makes touring
it's
a lot easier
oh, it
when
makes it
you're
great. I mean,
and
the last time I think it was the last time I
oh, I'm
toured
thinking
with
about the
you.
horse tartare.
No, no, I know. Sebastian found these places in Italy that were just fucking spectacular. And by the way, Michelin rated Italian, not the horse tartare one, the one we did before that, which was near Parma. It was like 5 people, full meal, dessert, bottles of wine, and it was 200 euros. I mean, Italians, it's pretty affordable. I mean that meal in New
I
York would have
mean,
been $1,000
I look
dollars.
at it this way too. How much can you charge for a fucking bowl of pasta? But trust me, I never eat out at Italian restaurants unless I'm in Italy.
Yeah, well, they're
$20 for a plate of pasta? Give me a break.
well, they know how to do it.
Anyway,
They
I'm waiting on the contract for the reissue of my cookbook. Anyway,
Well, speaking of food, did you hear about the 250,000 egg heist that happened? Because the
that
egg
wasn't me,
prices
but
were up. Well, the prices were so high, and so of course there was these big trucks going cross country. There was like a bullseye on it, and there was a delivery. Cal Maine Foods is a corporation. I assume they're located in California and Maine, based on the name, but they're probably everywhere. And they had this truck egg pickup April 11th, and at some point, 250,000 eggs disappeared. So I mean, I don't know if I'd want to buy eggs in the black market. I think that sounds a little
I don't
a
think
little
so.
scary.
Blue
Yes.
market. But what about? Do you remember a couple of weeks ago when that truck? I don't know what happened, but like millions of bees escaped. They were transporting hives, and like, I mean, I think it was millions of bees
Oh my
escaped. But
God.
let my bees come. I don't know. I mean, we don't really have that many bees to spare at this
When was the
moment,
last
but
time you were stung by a bee?
never. It's only
Never in
spiders.
your life?
Never by a bee. Never by a mosquito.
Whoa.
Never by a snake.
What do you mean never by a mosquito? Everyone's been bitten by a mosquito.
Have you tasted my sweet flesh? It's made only for human consumption.
All right. Okay. I
I
mean,
know mosquitoes, and no, anyone who's near me might get bitten. I only am the feast of spiders, which hasn't happened in a while. But I have this strange black and blue mark on my arm, just a little
weird.
bump in the middle, and I'm like, is that bump a bite? But I
It
wouldn't know
might
what it could be
be.
from because I didn't feel it anyway. No, my sweet yet somehow tangy flesh avoids the mosquitoes, the snakes,
My
bears. No.
my histamine reaction to bug bites has gotten worse as I gotten older. I don't know what that is. Like some allergy or something. I had these things called no-see-ums, these like micro things that will bite you. They kind of hang in the sand at beaches.
Oh,
And anyhow,
horrible,
I was in Florida a couple years ago and
terrible.
I didn't feel the things until like later that night. I was like, what the hell?
You
Awful.
got bitten. You got bitten when we were in South America, right?
Oh yeah, well I still have the scar on my arm. That was like no joke
Well,
bite. That was like a no joke.
fortunately, I don't have the scar on my bosom or ass from the spider attempts at assassination.
Another tour story.
Well, and yes. Well, Sebastian, that was my finger. Remember, Oh no, That's true. Sebastian was there
Uh-oh.
when I had to have the pus squeezed out of my
Oh.
right ass cheek every day. Go to the doctor every
Every
day,
day.
every day, because I must be allergic to them. But I've told this story. I'm going to tell it again. We're at Tim wasn't with us then. We're at an outdoor festival, I think in Malmo. I don't remember where. And
Yep.
there was a medic outside. So I had to go to the medics, and I walk in, and there were two handsome, hot medics, one blonde, one brunette. And I'm going, excuse me, gentlemen, would anybody like to squeeze the pus out of my ass? To which, of course, they burst out laughing. I go, I'm serious. So they go back there and they start squeezing. And I'm like, oh, you motherfucker, you sadist. And one says, sadist, just because I was in a bondage club last week in a kilt and my mother walked in doesn't mean I'm a sadist. And then so they're squeezing and I go, ow, what about a shot of morphine? And they gave me one. And then I said, well, hey, I'll blow you for another one. Just putting it out there. And they're like, get out, young lady. But Sebastian was there holding my cat. It was one of our many tour stories.
Win.
Every day to the hospital to squeeze pus out of my out of my right ass cheek.
They couldn't shoot up antibiotics right into the bite.
I mean, it wasn't as bad as when I had it on my and I don't know why it's always on my right side, right finger, right bosom, right butt cheek. I don't know what it is.
Spiders.
Anyway, hasn't been in a while. Then once we're on tour and I get one on my finger. And I call the doctor to the hotel in Europe again. And he goes, stick it in a glass of whiskey. I go, you don't understand. I'm allergic. I'll stick it in a glass of whiskey. So I'm sent to this clinic, and the taxi driver goes, no, don't go there. Go to this other clinic. Go to the other clinic. And they go, ew, I don't even want to look at that. I'm like, you don't want to look at my finger. I don't want to live in my finger. Here, they give me a prescription. The prescription was banned 2 weeks prior, but finally on the third attempt, I found a pharmacy I still have the scar to give me the now deleted drugs. Anyway, other than that, perfectly fine.
Insects are no joke. You have to. Jeff Hanneman, one of the guitar players of Slayer. I think it's Jeff Hanneman. He claimed, he's bitten by a spider in Brazil and or somewhere in South America, and years later he ended up getting these kind of neurological, sort of like Lyme disease, but it was something else. All these neurological issues. It like was dormant in his nervous system. And
I'm like, can't you take the DNA of the spider that bit me? And because the first time I was bitten, it was like a little tiny period descending from the ceiling. I whacked it. Oh, by the way, speaking about whacking and insects, so it's ant season. So I had some ants in my house.
Okay.
Which ants, they're industrious, they're clean, but nobody wants ants. And so, and I know they don't like cinnamon because they suffocate, but also you should never squash an ant, because then it releases pheromones that other ants come to try to save it. Because of course I was smushing the buggers and bleaching them, and then I realized they were going after this one plant I had, and then I realized coffee beans. They don't like the smell of coffee.
I did not know that either.
And coffee grounds in a plant is very nutritious. So that's our that's our Eloise tip for the day.
I don't know.
Ants, they don't like coffee grinds. They suffocate on cinnamon, and don't smash them because others will come to try to rescue them to bring them back to the ant graveyard.
In sub-Saharan Africa, if like a whole army ants, I mean, if they come through your house, there's nothing you can do. Nothing's gonna, whatever their trajectory is, they're just gonna just go right through anything.
Well, fortunately, we're not in South Africa, but anyway, I always have a lot of cinnamon on hand just in case. A lot of critters don't. Yeah.
Well,
remember that TikTok trend a few years ago, inhaling cinnamon.
Oh yeah, that's so stupid.
Fools.
I mean, speaking of bug bites, I mean, it's been a long time, but red ants, when they bite you, oh, does that fucking hurt? And now I don't know if this is a myth. I have to look this up, but I've heard this, that the venom in a red ant is considerably more toxic than any of the most venomous snakes, but it's so microscopic, the amount of poison, that it won't kill you. It's like so small, but you're like, holy fucking shit.
I don't know if it was called Kings of Pain, but you remember when we were at your friend's
Oh,
house up in,
yes.
and I was
Yes.
talking to the 12-year-old because he was into Jackass. I'm like, oh, no, no. What about Kings of Pain? Which were two guys purposely getting bitten by the most venomous, deadliest, poisonous, brutal creatures on the planet. And then what the repercussions of it were. I mean, again, another show with men doing shit I would never do.
Well, those TV shows backfire. I mean, it's like Steve the Crocodile Hunter. Now, but the thing about him is it wasn't a crocodile that took him down. It was like a fucking leaping stingray jumps out of the boat, jumps out of the water into the boat, and then like a
Into his heart.
dagger stabs him right in the heart. Like the stingray knew where to go. It makes no sense.
Well, I mean, what a way to be crucified by unbelievable. Anyway, who's on
Well,
the
there,
podcast?
well, hold on before we do that.
Oh, we got another one. Go ahead.
There's a book that just came out called Submerged, and it is a pretty wild claim, but they claim they have the evidence that Stockton Rush, the guy that owned that submarine company, where the one imploded, I should say, not exploded, imploded to go do tourism to see the sunken Titanic.
Yeah.
There's a theory that he
was suicidal.
Was suicidal. He was so obsessed with the Titanic, he wanted to be part of the history of it. And there was so many red flags. And anytime someone would question him,
warned repeatedly.
Yeah, and he would fire those people if they even question.
Well, you know what? What else just exploded? Another freaking SpaceX. Now, why doesn't idiot boy just go up on one of them and explode for us as well? He wants to go to Mars. All he has to do is go on one of these exploding spaceships, and his DNA will float out into the universe where it will sprinkle itself like moon dust everywhere, because just having it all contained in one dumb looking, big, goofy, chainsaw wielding, bad business, rocket exploding idiot, it's just too much. It's just too much.
Sebastian, what I mean, you've followed Tesla for years with all their innovations and stuff. What's the general vibe on him in France right now?
Oh, in France, like 10 people got together in some kind of class action because they wanted to stop paying their lease on their car because they said that it gives a bad impression on them while they're driving it.
Nice.
And then people say they're fascists or whatever and stuff like that because they have a Tesla.
I mean, beyond not even fascist, assist. That's going to be my new word. The same assist. They're assist. Confront the cuckocracy and these assist politicians, these Republicans, these Democratic cons, the kleptocracy. We got to get rid of it. And in the meantime, this is the Lydian Spin with Lydia Lunch and Tim Dahl. And today we have my good friend, a punk rock comedian with his new book, Doing Time, out July 8th, JT Habersaat. Great graphic artist as well. Here we go. The Lydian Spin, once again and probably forever, because that's what we do. This is the Lydian Spin with Lydia Lunch, Timothy Seymour Dahl, and my sometime road companion and punk rock comedian, JT Habersaat, who has a new book out called Doing Time. Comedians talk stand up, a 4-year in the process excavation, kind of like the oral history, kind of like a Please Kill Me of comedians and the life they lead. Hello, JT.
Hey, how are you? Good to see you.
You're in Pittsburgh. We're in Brooklyn. We're road dogs.
Yeah, you know how it is.
You're touring right now. That's why you're in Pittsburgh. You're touring right now.
Yeah, I hit the road. I came in a day early to connect with Eddie Pepitone tomorrow. We're doing shows in Pittsburgh this Thursday, and then a couple over the weekend in Cincinnati.
Well, what's Eddie's nickname? Like the Bad Buddha?
The Bitter Buddha. The Bitter
Buddha. Yeah. And anybody who doesn't know who Eddie Pepitone is, I mean, he's been slothing around for quite a while, and he is the Bitter Buddha, no doubt.
Comedy genius. We've been working together for about half a decade, and there was a documentary by the same name, The Bitter Buddha, that came out.
I saw that a couple of years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. And that kind of really launched his infamy.
Now, JT, we have some a bit of history.
Yeah.
I'm trying to recall exactly. I think, correct me if I'm wrong. I know we did an interview quite a long time ago. I don't know if that was the
Yeah.
first thing we did, but then it took you a while to try to find the person that could get me the photo of this incredible
Yeah.
doll you made of me. One
Yeah.
copy
A
only.
voodoo doll, or what kind of doll was
No,
this?
it looks
Here.
exactly like me.
Yeah.
Oh.
So JT has many talents besides comedy. We're going to get to that. First of all, he's an amazing graphic artist, has done quite a few
thank you.
posters for me, and will continue. He needs to have a poster site. But
Thanks.
he sent to Tom Garrett, said, perfectly packaged, this little Lydia, and he does one-of-a-kind dolls for people. And I'm like, what the hell? And of course, I didn't connect it to an interview we'd already done, and
Yeah.
that took a while to get to me.
Yeah.
And then I think you approached me for Modern Drunkard magazine,
Yeah.
which is
Great history.
a great magazine that, of course, I'm not a drunkard. I just occasionally like to drink.
Yeah.
And then somehow I think you approached me. We met a few times, and then you said, I don't know how we came up with the concept, stand-up comedy, stand-up tragedy, and we did some shows.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, I used to run a magazine called Altercation Magazine when I was living in New York, like over 20 years ago. And we did an interview for that way back when. But you were living in Europe at the time. And so we did like an hour-long phone conversation. And I had seen you live a few times at like the Knitting Factory and stuff whenever you come back to the States. And one time with James Chance. I remember seeing that show. That was amazing. That was on the Smoke in the Shadows tour.
Okay.
And then fast forward, 2 decades. And I think the initial outreach was I was trying to find you to give you the action figure, because during COVID, when I couldn't tour doing comedy, I started making these action figure one-offs, and
They're so good. I mean, look, it's not a bobblehead and it's not a bubble butt. It actually looks like a little mini Lydia, perfectly packaged. I thought, well, maybe we should actually manufacture, but he does one of a kind.
Yeah, they're all, my slogan is one and done, because I kind of subscribe to the theory that, one is art and two is kind of gross commerce, and I don't want to do that.
But speaking about commerce, when we were on tour,
yes,
almost every day, we'd have to go where?
Dollar store, the Dollar Tree.
To do what?
Dollar General, Green Dollar, Dollar
get
Tree.
The candles.
Mm-hmm.
To get the candles I was selling before I progressed over to the battery operated ones, which are much lighter to carry, and you can have them shipped.
Going back to the dolls, though, what materials do you use? I mean,
so it's kind of, I kind of DIY'd my way into it like anything else. So like I said, during COVID, I basically made one for my good friend Mishka Shubali, who's a brilliant writer and musician on his own right. And I made one for his birthday. I just made a zombie hymn with like his cat and his guitar. And do
you find like little dolls that you then pervert into?
Yeah, so I basically scour the dark web of the internet and eBay to find figures that look like something else a little bit, and then I sculpt and repaint and use a power saw on them and do the graphic design layout, because the packaging is kind of half the fun. And
sure.
Because it could actually hang in a store. It's so well packaged.
Thanks.
It looks so official. And that also goes on to your incredible and really fast. I'm like, JT, need a poster. It's like in half an hour it's done, and it's amazing.
Thank you. That means
I don't know, why don't you have a poster site?
I don't know. Like you, what I admire so much about you and why I think we work together well is that you wear a lot of hats, and so
you got one on now.
And the reality is this book has taken over my life for the last couple of years, between touring and doing the action figure art and doing poster design kind of on the side, maybe for friends and for my.
Is doing the posters relaxing for you? I mean, you're really quick at it though. It's because it's a different mindset.
Yeah, I literally will throw on Forensic Files or some sort of true crime in the background. And
of course you will.
Smoke a little weed and drink a little whiskey and just do layout. And I'll also, because it's important for me to also say that, I can't draw, I can't illustrate. And so what I do is but I have pretty good aesthetic. And so
good.
I'll go through and license illustrations that I think are cool or have artistic value in some way, and so the artist gets paid, and then I'll do the layout and put them all together and kind of pick the fonts and do the whole design.
When I was just in Seattle, the woman
Yeah.
I stayed with who helped with the workshop had the Raven Sylvia Black one framed, and it looks so good when they're framed.
I love that. Yeah, see that what's cool too is they're 11. I always do 11 by 17, except for I have a comedy festival I run called the Altercation Comedy Festival every year, and I do big ones for that. But for on the road, I've always been a fan of people like Frank Kozik and all those cats. And then living in Austin, Texas, there's a lot of people. Billy Perkins is a buddy of mine, just does amazing illustrations and stuff. And so I kind of always come from that world of loving the poster art. And so when I started touring with people like Eddie Pepitone and Brian Posehn and Doug Stanhope, I started making one-off posters of like 20 or one of just 20, 25, and we'd sign them and sell
And it
them.
helps. Any money in the pocket helps, and
Yeah,
people
it
like
was-
that as something to take away.
Yeah, and people loved it. I couldn't venues all wanted one, and now when you go to those venues, a lot of times like that, they're hanging there, and that's just great. I love that, and I try and approach my merch stuff kind of like the action figures. It all starts with what would I like to buy or what would I like to have.
And you were a fan of the dollar store and snooping around. And
I find toy parts there. The crazy thing about those dollar stores is if you see something, you better buy it because it's not, unless it's a candle. But like in general, if I find something that, I actually was walking down the aisle here when I got into town yesterday.
of course you did.
Of course I was. And I found an action figure. I said, that face looks exactly like Snoop Dogg. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but that's a Snoop Dogg head. And now I have one for down the road if I decide I want to do something. So that's kind of how I do it. The official
that kind of art is a lot more. It's the same with if I'm doing photography,
Yes.
or montages. It's just a different part of the brain you're using, and it actually is so much more. Can be so much more immediate. I mean, your posters they come out so fast, and that's really great to offset how long it takes for everything else we do.
Yeah. In truth, though, too, I mean, I'm used to like you having to need the thing immediately when the inspiration strikes.
Yeah.
And so if you say I'm going to Europe for 5 weeks and I need a poster in 3 days, can you do it? I'm going to get it done.
And that one was really good. The last Suicide or Murder You Decide with Mark Hurtado. That one was really awesome.
That's one with the noose
But
rope.
hey, sometimes you suggest you want to do a poster for me, which is even better. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
I've
done
thank you.
Yeah, I love doing posters for musicians and artists that I'm fans of. I've done some for I did one for Swans once. I've done some for like the Black Angels, who are an amazing Austin band that
Which, by the way, speaking about music, you turned me on to a lot of good music that I didn't know about, or I'd only heard the names, like the Black Angels. I mean, your knowledge of music is phenomenal. I mean, it's as good as, or if not better than your knowledge of comedians.
No, that's arguably true. I started in as a music fan, and that still remains my, I've got that kind of, for some people know baseball stats, right? I just have kind of a good memory for mainly underground and just kind of alternative music.
I was impressed. I was impressed with what you played me. I was like, I'm still waiting for the downloads, but that's all right when you have time. Like maybe
no. For sure. I have I actually have one of those zip cards.
USBs.
Got USB for you. Yeah, I did that. I just keep forgetting to mail it.
And by the way, you just did stickers for me. Thank you very much for my next candles.
Yeah,
it doesn't stop.
Yeah.
You volunteer. I'm very thankful. Now, this book, which is hilarious and heartbreaking, doing time on Jawbone, which is a great British label.
Yeah,
Comedians Talk Stand Up. And also, I mean, most people don't know him by his real name, but he's a lot in there. Neil Hamburger.
Oh, I love him. Yeah. He's the one. His real name of so Neil Hamburger is the character. It's a stage persona of like an intentionally kind of bad, I don't know, cat comedian.
Just a creep.
But it's mean. It's mean in the right ways. Yes.
Yeah.
I had to go back and watch some more Neil Hamburger after I was reading through your book.
Yeah.
He's just,
and it's very music obsessed. The subjects are often
obsessed.
Often Red Hot Chili Peppers, Take Down.
Grateful Dead, Great Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Christ hasn't taken me down yet, but there's still time. Still time. So I dare him. He's not going to do it.
He's a fan of you. Neil Hamburger, his real name is Greg Turkington, and he's in another thing called On Cinema. with Tim Heidecker, who's a brilliant comedian that I worked with recently. I worked with both of them when they were in Austin this summer. They're amazing. And so Greg was one that I really admired because he did a movie called Entertainment, which I think the last time I was on, I briefly mentioned with you guys, but it's an incredible indie dark film about basically the character Neil Hamburger on tour and how just brutal it is. Just the reality. It's dark. It's I think it's brilliant and hilarious. A lot of people I've showed it to like, dude, what's wrong with
you? Well, he's so dark, and then the documentary is so, or the film is so dark. Yeah. But you have so many incredible people in here, and no wonder it took you 4 years. But not only the interviews, but the editing is really great. You know, it really, the subject matter, the chapters are really great. You have Bobcat Goldthwait. You have one of my favorite, Maria. I mean, come on, we know Bamford. I love her.
One of the best people in comedy. She's amazing.
I mean, I just consider her like a transistor radio, just changing the dial every 30 seconds.
Maria's one amazing. She's a completely brilliant singular voice in comedy. I just worked with her. What I Am to Eddie is her opener for more or less, but she's a headliner in her own right. Jackie Cation out of Los Angeles. We just worked together in Denver last weekend, and she's brilliant. She tours with Maria all the time.
Weakness is the new brand. Is just a great special that she did. I mean, I have to give props. I'd love to have her on the show. I've told you that before. Keep working on that, my friend.
I will.
But you have so many great talents in here, and Patton Oswalt and Dana Gould. I mean, there's so many names that you've either worked with or that through connections. One thing I love that I read in here that you said, don't ever ask a comedian for another comedian's phone number. Like, they're not going to give,
you don't do it. You don't do it. It's if you're working with someone, I've always been very much the impression, approach them as a person first and as a whatever you think they are second in terms of performer, but that is an unspoken code. I think in general, it crosses over into music as well, for sure, where if someone wants you to stay in touch, they'll give you the phone number, but you never ask for it. And so when I started doing the interviews, it was during COVID, when fortunately a lot of people were kind of home. So that worked out. That's when I got the idea. I'm like, well, a lot of my people that I know are around right now.
Yeah, nobody's doing anything but staring at the screen anyway.
Right. And so it was a great time to get interviews. And so I just started going through my phone. I said, well, who would I be able to contact? And almost everybody in the book was in my phone already. There was a few. So I met Scott Thompson from Kids in the Hall at South by Southwest. And brilliant. I love him so much. I think he's so brilliant. And the Kids in the Hall were a huge influence on me when I was like in college and stuff. And they're just so dark and amazing. And the interview I did with him went so well. I said, I'd love to talk to any of the kids. And that immediately popped up, Kevin and then other members of the troupe. And so that was kind of referral-ish, where they just basically vouched for me. And then the next one vouched for me, and it just kind of springboarded.
Well, and you also have one of my favorite, I mean, I do not basically ever go for musical comedy, but I have to say Weird Al Yankovic kind of holds a special place because it's just, and especially, I mean, I have to say his couch potato based on Eminem's Lose Yourself. I think it's based on Lose Yourself. I'm not sure.
Probably.
Which Eminem would not let him do a video for, but he did it live, and it's just so incredible. I mean, like all of his takeoffs.
I mean,
Weird Al is hard to not love.
Guys, JG, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
How often do you come across, whether with your own performances or I would say maybe more in like the real character comedians, say like Neil Hamburger, does someone in the audience, whether they're a heckler or not, does someone not get it? Does someone not get it as much as the person's committed to playing the character, and they never can even see it, and they're even upset about it, and there's a back and forth thing. They really double down, and they don't want to get it or something. They don't want to see it.
There are some pieces I'm heckling in here, which I am a professional.
That's kind of my favorite thing to watch, honestly. Not heckling, but when someone is doing like a Neil Hamburger thing, and someone in the crowd is just perplexed, I find that makes me cackle at a level like so. Greg had stopped doing interviews a decade ago. He didn't do interviews anymore. And so
which is why he's not on this podcast.
Yeah, no, for real. He said, yeah, when I worked with him, I mentioned that you wanted him on, and he's like, I just don't do interviews anymore.
Yeah.
And I did an interview before I did the interview with him because my buddy David Yao from the Jesus Lizard was in his movie Entertainment, and David said, you should talk to Greg. And I said, I'd love to. And it turned out, because Greg's background is in music, he was Mr. Bungle's road manager and Link Ray's road manager.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we've met before, because I interviewed Mr. Bungle a million years ago for my magazine, and Greg was the road manager. And so there's some weird stuff where we talked and he agreed to do the interview. And he talks in the book about opening for Tenacious D at Madison Square.
Oh. No, I mean, what balls? What balls? Neil Hamburger opening for Tenacious D.
Madison Square Garden. And
terrifying.
So, I mean, he talks about how the crowd hated him, and he just had to take delight in their hatred, where it was fun necessarily. But if you're going to be in that situation where no matter, and it's so nuanced a character too, you know, like there's so much he does that isn't even spoken that's hilarious. He'll drop his drinks or something, you know, or
hold 3 at one time.
Or yeah, he always holds 3 pint glasses of vodka at one time. And so he talks about baiting the audience. Madison Square Garden sold out, baiting them and saying, all right, let me do one more joke, and then I promise I'll bring out Tenacious D.
Tenacious D sold out Madison Square Garden? Okay, keep on.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah,
Whoa.
This was unbelievable.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, it did. And he would say, just let me do one more because I have friends in the crowd that want to hear this bit. And he'd do it. And then he'd just go on to the next bit and just completely disregard his promise. And so that shit is incredibly funny to me.
So bold.
So bold. Full balls. But also, I guess there's a bit of defense of playing a character where, like, well, they don't really know that my name's Greg, you know? Yeah. So maybe there's something in that. But on the flip of it, I mean, if I've never seen anyone, I had the good fortune to work with Weird Al one time at a festival, and it was such an awesome show. But like, if you're going to that show and you don't know what's happening, that's kind of on you, even though he's kind of playing a character, you know?
Have you ever seen a heckler that was so committed and was not a bitter, failed comedian, just like a rando that was so good that they became
should have been on stage.
Yeah, became notorious. People like, this person actually should be on stage.
Yes, but never at a comedy show.
Okay.
I remember going to see Frank Black from the Pixies at the Bowery Ballroom with my best friend Bry, and we had done an interview with Frank Black earlier in the afternoon, and we went there, and Frank Black had this opener who was some guy who fancied himself like a Johnny Cash. He had like the duster jacket and was just this insufferable douche. Like he was just something, everything about him was incredible. Just so trying so hard, and his songs weren't good, and so everyone was kind of tolerating him. And then he started getting angry at the audience because he wasn't getting much response, and justifiably so. And I remember he said, this song goes out to all the nihilists out there, and he played the song, and at the end nobody applauded, and he said, I guess that didn't go over well, and somebody yelled out, whatever, nihilist. And it was the funniest mic drop. Like you could see the dude crumple, you know, because they just, I don't know. So every once in a while, I've seen some very witty motherfuckers kind of take people to task. But at a comedy show, if you're seeing a headliner, first of all, our knives are sharp, you know, and I don't really crowd work. So I'm not inviting a conversation.
Just explain to people who don't know what crowd work is.
Sure. So crowd work is comedians that don't have an act. It's very popular right now, and I kind of have a degree of disdain for it. Some people do it very well. There's certain people, Rory Scovel, who's in the book, I think is one of the most brilliant comics I've ever seen, and he does crowd work that is so, you're just basically riffing on the audience with no prepared material. Or you have a Robin Williams angle where it just appears that way, because Robin Williams always had 19 ideas in his back pocket, but it looked so spur of the moment because of his manic energy. So a lot of what Robin did, he was a great improviser, but a lot of his stuff on stage was planned and just looked like a magic trick of just, how did he come up with that? You know, that was his genius. But there's people right now that I find it lazy to say, I'm going to, like, basically you're saying, I'm going to go on tour. And even if I have this skill set that I'm confident in, you're going to pay to watch me try. fuck you. Like,
You must know there was a comedy duo that had
Yeah.
three episodes on whatever Netflix that did total crowd work. They were really good though, and then one got kind of taken down because he admitted in press that him and his wife like to have three ways, and he was kind of shut off. You know who I'm talking about?
I don't. So it was two men.
Yeah, it was two men, and they were really good. But I mean, I'm drawing a blank, but I'm going to get back to it later. But
Yeah.
when you first started, you were opening in front of rock bands, right? In
Yeah.
front of alt rock bands.
Yeah.
I mean, how hard was that? That's bold as well. I know
Hard.
coming from a stand-up tragedy in front of some music, like that's really you're going for it.
Yeah, for
Who were
sure.
some of the first people you did that with?
So I've, cut from that same cloth of when I moved to Austin. I didn't start stand up till I moved to Austin in 2005, and I didn't start till about 2007, 2008. And when I started, there's a hierarchy of what you're supposed to do, and that's go to the comedy club, put your time in, eventually get your 10-minute hosting spot, put your time in, do the comedy contest, all this bullshit. I just didn't want to do it. And maybe that was youthful arrogance. I was 33, so it's not that youthful, but arrogance or confidence, whatever you want to say. But I thought, I don't want to do that. And what I was leaning towards was more story-based anyway, which is what I still kind of do. And so I just knew enough band people around Austin that I booked my own show and had people show up. And it wasn't comedy fans necessarily, but it was, music people. And so they would get the references I was going for. And it went pretty well, pretty quick. And I had a show during South by Southwest 2012 where a full-scale fight with the audience broke out between me and a couple of my compatriots, where the audience got mad about something and they stormed the stage, and I had to go up there.
Whoa.
Fireworks ended up being shot at people in the parking lot, and Stand Up Records owner happened to be in the crowd and signed me because of that, because it was fucking bedlam. And that's how I got my first record deal with them. They're a Grammy-winning comedy label out of Minneapolis. And I just started working with musicians as much as I was working with headliners, because I kind of was, when people would come to town and looking for something different, they'd say, who's doing weird stuff? And they say, well, JT is a comedian, but he doesn't do comedy clubs. And so that's how I started working with people like legendary character Billy Milano of MOD and SOD. I did some shows with them. Billy's still around Austin. The Sword, which is an amazing stoner metal band. I've done stuff with the Dwarves, the Riverboat.
How was the Dwarves crowd?
Fun. I mean, the Dwarves crowd was
probably
great.
They get it. They might get it.
They have a good sense of humor anyway, because the Dwarves are so over the top. And
right.
Blake, one of my favorite people. We're good buddies, and he's so smart and just sees he just sees the carnival aspect of what he does in he's a very sharp guy. And so some of those shows were tough, And
how long when you first started opening for bands, how long was your set? And I know you were a story-based comedian as opposed to a joke-based comedian.
Yes, but I still would keep it brief. I'd say 15, 20 minutes max.
Which is you can't do anymore.
No, you can't. You can't hold their crowd that long. And it wasn't completely alien, because people like David Cross were doing stuff with bands. I saw him and Jello Biafra almost get into a fist fight on stage one time because Jello wouldn't get off the stage. That was hilarious.
Does he ever? I'm not sure.
I've met Jello a few times, and Jello's fine, but he can go a long time. And so, yeah, for better or for worse, I kind of became known as the punk rock guy. And I did a month-long tour with this band Off With Their Heads out of Chicago, which is a great band. I opened for the Murder Junkies once. I just liked the challenge of it. Even going out with you, I was thrilled by how it went, but I didn't know what to expect. Your crowds are known for eagerly wanting kind of confrontational material.
Yeah, but they're also, look, I've presented a lot of things. I find my so-called crowd, if there is one, pretty tolerant.
No, for sure. No, I thought it went.
We had no problems.
I had the best time. The important things I learned early on were key. You have to be advertised so people know what it is. It has to be a poster saying this is a comedy thing, not so people aren't caught off guard going, why is this dude talking? Also,
And that's why it was good. Stand-up comedy, stand-up tragedy. That's it. That's what it is.
Yep.
It tells it like it is.
Yep.
You get it or you don't.
And we called it the last laugh, which I thought was really great
Because we got the last laugh.
Yeah, yes, it was ours. And so the other thing when I'm on tour with bands, I didn't want to do it with you because you're coming out as a solo performer, but like when I'm out with, the Riverboat Gamblers or something, I have their singer bring me up at the beginning and say what's happening.
That helps.
Crowd, basically, most of those audiences, if they're not into it, they'll go to the bar or something. They're not going to.
Well, and let me tell you, what did I try to get you to not do? This is the opposite of what you're just saying.
Yeah.
So the lead singer, whatever, comes out and introduces you. What do I hate? Because this is what comedy always does. Hey, how you doing, Cincinnati? And by the way, we got Lydia Lunch on the bill. Oh, I told you almost every night. Stop it.
Yes. That's habit.
And you love doing it. And I almost strangled you.
Yes, I know. But yes, you don't like the fanciful buildup. But in comedy, that's part of my job because
I know
9 out of 10 times, like when I'm with Eddie this weekend or when I'm with Brian Posehn, there'll be a host that the locals supply, right? And we don't know the host. We're trusting the venue or whoever, the promoter, to have someone good. And they're almost always friendly, but they're not always good. And so what the headliners like to do is have them bring me up, and then when I'm done, I immediately bring up the headliner, and there's no lag time, and they know that I'm going to do it in a come on, let's get the energy up vibe.
Hype man.
Yeah, kind of a hype man, So I do my set, and then my last 2 minutes is hype man.
But I don't like it, and you still do it, so I have to respect it.
Well, let me ask. There's a question to the two of you.
Yes.
Who are your favorite hype men or women in the rap game?
I mean, Flavor
Flav, right?
He's the immediate one. But
whatever.
But he's jumped the shark too. I mean, he became so cartoony when
he's too silly.
Reality shows. But back in the day, he was the guy. I don't know if you necessarily call him a hype man, but Andre 3000. I love Outkast.
Well, yeah, but he's his own guy.
He's his own guy for sure. But when Outkast is together, he's kind of like
he's the mascot, I think, more.
Yes.
I wonder who's going to be the intro on the coming soon RZA Wu-Tang revival, which is going to be happening soon.
That was in Austin Sunday night, but I missed it. I had a pack.
Oh, God.
Okay, going back to rap, though. Going to rap.
Yeah.
When you were talking about crowd work, comedians, and you're saying it doesn't feel like it feels a little lazy. It's not written enough. Would you say that mumble rap is the crowd work of rap? I mean, that's what Eminem says. There's nothing written, It's
daddy.
I'm going to let you be attributed to that quote, but I will agree with it and laugh at it.
Ain't gonna hang with the mumble rap core. No,
mumble rap is not my thing. But you see someone else like Del, the funky Homo sapien, who is like a robot alien. He's so amazing at just off the dome. Like there's certain people like that I'm in awe of.
Well, I saw George Clinton make a comment on mumble rap, and he goes, if the new generation does something that bothers me, I check it out.
Sure, no, I agree with that.
I check it out, but I got to know what I hate, so I know to hate it.
Exactly right. It's like when I watch comedy by people that I know I don't like. I want to be informed as to why I think it sucks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
absolute.
But to your question, I've done enough festivals where there's been some mumble rap as a part of it, music festivals and stuff, where I've seen enough to know it's not my
ain't no thing. No mumble rap. I mean, it's like the emo of rap.
That's exactly how that's what I agree. Because when emo came out, and I'm not talking about Rites of Spring, I'm not talking about Discord Records. When emo or Mineral or anything like that, I'm talking about Saves the Day type screamo bands. Because I was on Warped Tour, touring, doing comedy when that.
Oh my! Okay. Wait a minute. You tell me, when was that? You were on Warped Tour. Brave and big balls, you JT.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. The very first year they tried stand up. We didn't even have a stage. We set up on the ground with at the Skull Candy headphones stage. It wasn't a stage. There was no stage. Every day, the time were different every day. We didn't know if we were going on at noon or 8 p.m. I did 7 shows out of 20. And it remains the most difficult shit I have ever done in my entire life. Because I was not on a bus. Some people, Mac Lindsay, who's in the book, is a great friend of mine. We met on Warped Tour. He's a Comedy Store regular, has his name on the Comedy Store wall and everything. And Mac and I, that's how we became friends. And he was on the entire tour and had a bus bunk, but I had to drive myself sometimes 8 hours after being there all day.
Might be better than being on a bunk with a bunch of stinky rockers or comedians.
Maybe
emo boys, yeah.
But it was a rough routing. And we did Buffalo and then Brooklyn and then Toronto.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it was like my version of Army boot camp or something, or like, just incredibly difficult. It felt like a Full Metal Jacket.
Well, so what was more difficult, the actual logistics of getting yourself from place to place, or enduring the shitty emo bands?
Well, the shitty emo bands I fortunately would bypass, and there were a handful of bands I really loved. Like the Bronx was on the tour that I was on, and I loved them. This band Gallows, who were from the UK. Actually, Frank, their singer from Gallows, is now fronting the Sex Pistols. That incarnation. He's a brilliant, really intense singer. And so I'd watch them every day. I think Against Me was on a few of the shows I did. And so there was enough that I liked, but there was some awful, it was basically hair metal. It was basically dudes in guy liners saying the most cliche, the swing of the mic.
Yeah, all the moves.
All the moves, like all the stuff.
And the names of those bands were always like Sarah Loves Tuesdays and stuff like that.
Blank bands, the blank, because there's always like Saves the Day or Smoke the Pole or Jerk Off the Giraffe or whatever, and I hated the corniness of it.
Yeah, of course.
Really just cheesy to me. And
they don't see it, I don't think. I think there is a sense of earnestness. I don't think they can fucking see it, right?
No, well, they were young, and so they hadn't been through hair metal and stuff, and so it was kind of like everything as old as new again to them. And the fan base was there. The 16-year-old girls loved that shit, and so you can't argue with commerce, I guess. But when there's like these bands, We the Kings and all this stuff, I would see it and just go, God, this is not for me.
Yeah.
So that was a little tough to hear that, because you're competing with it. You're trying to talk as people are walking by you and do comedy.
Were you ever bold enough on the mic? Because you're basically working along with this touring festival. Did you ever say like, this shit sucks? Did you ever like call out the shitty music behind you?
Oh yeah, yes. Oh, I did. Yeah, yes. Yeah, I had a whole 15-minute bit about a band called Cute Is What We Aim For, because the name infuriated me so much. Something about it that just really rubbed me the wrong way. And so I would do that and try to speak to the 20% of Warped Tour crowd participants that were there to see the Bronx or Agnostic Front or whoever the two bands were. What
does Agnostic Front think of these bands when on the road?
I would love to find out what Vinny Stigma thinks of these bands, but that would be a hilarious interview. But I didn't really have time to hang out with too many of them. I hung out with the Bronx a little bit. I've made them action figures. I know some of the folks in Against Me. But I really was there to do the job and just sell merch and try and make whatever I could out of it and then just go to the next spot. It was really difficult, but also Kevin Lyman, who runs Warped Tour, is really a great dude. He put on the first Lollapaloozas. Like, he's been in the producer game a long time, and I really respect the hell out of him. He just did, they did a 2-day Warped Tour reunion this past weekend.
I heard about that,
in DC and somewhere else. And I think like Fishbone and some bands played. But a bunch of my friends, brilliant lady comedians, Brandy Posey and Kristen Leighty, who are both in the book, they both did stand up on it this weekend and said it went great because they had an actual stage and people knew it was going to be there. So,
well, JJ, I want to just blow some smoke for a minute, because I want to read a little of the foreword that Eddie Pepitone wrote for your book, because it's really cool and it really tells who you are. So this is Eddie Pepitone. In the foreword to Doing Time, Comedians Talk Stand-Up, JT Habersaat on Jawbone. Out, any day now?
Out July 8th, officially.
Okay, any day now.
Yeah, thank you.
So this is by Eddie Pepitone. Let me just do my own reading, because you can't read from your own book. It's all quotes from other people. There's nothing in here. You're all over it, but there's none of your quotes. So Eddie had to quote. So I'm going to quote what you are, according to Eddie Pepitone, the bitter Buddha. I met JT Habersaat on the street in Austin, Texas. Little did I know it would lead to a deep friendship, as well as our traveling together all over the crumbling empire that is the USA. He asked me to do a part of his Altercation Comedy Festival in Austin that fall, and I accepted. The fest was a reflection of JT himself, loving, chaotic, and passionate. The greatest thing about it was JT's genuine interest and love for all of the comics. This was no Starfucker festival. These were comics from JT's life and new people he was given a chance to go through tape submissions. It just felt so authentic and beautiful. I had such a great time, and I was so impressed by the curation of the festival that I knew I wanted to work with him, which is a big compliment coming from the Bitter Buddha. JT's background as a road dog, one of my favorite words, because we are, with bands, was perfect for my brand of non-mainstream comedy. I love to just scream on stage as a way to combat the demons that have been running amok in my head for many years. I was not a comedy club guy, and neither was JT. His incredible feel for indie venues, coupled with his ability to get shit done in an affable yet business-like way, paved the way for us to start touring together. And that is so true. And we thank you for that, as I thank you too. And we still have more to do.
Yeah, no, I'd love to work with you. I mean, it means so much.
We had a great time. We had an easy.
I had a blast. I had so much fun.
Well, also, you said you were concerned about my crowd, but we went to places I'd never been before, cities I'd never been before, to your crowd.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about that one really weird place. I'm trying to think of where it was, where there was a guy outside in a kilt. The bouncer was 400 pounds. There was a gal who introduced us.
That was Winston-Salem at Monstercade.
So cool. I'm totally gothed out.
Yep.
People that were your fans because you'd been there many times.
Yeah.
Very tolerant of the tragedy. Yeah. And also your friend's house. That was we're just touring wherever. But what about your friend's house where we played on his screened-in porch?
Oh,
which
Greensboro.
was set. What's the name?
Yeah, we're in Greensboro, North Carolina, right?
At your friend's house, we played in a screened-in porch for his buddies, which was set at this great house on a pond.
Yeah.
And with a guy who was just a brilliant genius that sent me a box of books. And that's the fun of doing these kind of tours. It's like very alternative to even the alternative sometime.
Yeah, I mean, I feel so privileged.
Richmond, Virginia was great too. Where was that? What was that place?
That place ruled. That was Cobra Cabana.
Yeah, great chef and great audience.
Yeah,
every place we did was it went down very well.
Yeah, I feel like
what is comedy but tragedy with a smirk?
Absolutely, and my stuff is not depressive but dark enough. You know, I think I have a bit of a dark edge. I thought it worked really great. It was funny to me though on a few times where we had, Cabell was the woman who opened for us in Winston-Salem. She's great. And she came and hung out the next day in Greensboro at Kurt's house where we did that show. But there were one or two times where they put on local comics that we didn't know, including Richmond, and they had a rough go of it, man, because the crowd was, it was, you know.
Well, shouldn't have had them.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have had them. But can you just, in a nutshell, because I love that one story you were telling about the exploding coffee bag. Can you just tell that story in a nutshell? You don't have to go through the whole routine, but I love that story a lot.
I mean, there's been so many. I'm trying to remember exactly.
Car in the parking lot. You're really crabby.
Yeah. So you
remember that or not?
That's a new bit that I've been working on. I've been doing that this week. Actually, is basically I pulled into a parking lot of a fast food chain. And it was like 800 degrees because it's Texas, and it was a brand new fast food place because where I live just outside of Austin, not a lot of new stuff happens. And I was like, I'm gonna go because there's a primo parking spot right up front. I don't want to walk across all the crowded parking lot. And I got there, and the car next to that spot had done that dickhead park on an angle thing and made it unusable. And I had such an angry, I'm in my 40s, and I had this like Hulk rage of anger and needed to justify the situation somehow to make it right in my crazy brain. And so, I took a bag of coffee grounds that I found that Eddie or someone had left from a hotel of Colombian dark roast and threw it on his open window on the seat just to give myself some level of justice. Because it's
just to be a little bit dickish, a dickish relief.
Because I'm not the guy that would ever stab his tires or key his car, but I needed some sort of make good on this slight. And then I went in to order my food, and the gist is it turned out to be the oldest man in the world who had no idea he had parked like that. And it was this whole time of errors where I was actually the real villain of the story.
And then didn't he start like choking on the fumes or something?
Yeah, I thought he wouldn't see it. And then because the window was open, he opened it and wind swept through and he started coughing on the coffee ground. He's like this 80-year-old man dying in the sun. And the staff from the restaurant had to run out and help him. And, yeah.
And the thing is, I mean, that's stand-up tragedy with a smirk because and you were feeling dickish. You had to do something, and then in the end, you felt like shit.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's the whole concept.
You're a nice guy.
Yeah,
you're basically a nice guy.
I think so, but I have
we got dickishness. Come on, we're road dogs.
We get along for a reason, you know. I think anybody I work with has a core of. This is going to sound not great, but I think. Because I don't like punching down comedy. I don't like roast battles and stuff like that. I think that's kind of lame. And especially if you don't know the person, just kind of cruel. So I don't mean cruel when I say this, but I think the best comedy always has a little bit of mean. And that can be one from, you know, I just did a week of toys for Pride Week and I made Paul Lynde. And, you know, if you ever watch Hollywood's confirmed bachelor, Paul Lynde, and if you ever watch Hollywood Squares back in the day, he's a mean queen, you know. He's just like, and the kids in the hall have a stroke of that. Certain, you know, Brian Posehn that I work with is the most lovable, fan-friendly dude in the world, but he's got a dickish sense of humor too. Well, we bust each other's balls all the time.
I mean, you know, and look, and speaking about dickish, I always laugh when I see a dick, no matter what format it takes. It's just the way I am. It don't matter if it's dickish or a dick.
Yeah.
I mean, Danny DeVito is a comedic actor. I mean, he's a really sweet guy, is the word, and I know people know him, and it's like he's like the sweetest guy ever. But the mean thing is just.
Come on, Don Rickles, Joe Pesci, and you know we love it.
You know, like Doug Stanhope is one of the most generous people I've ever met, but his comedy can be fucking mean. And it's why it's so funny, you know, because it's contrarian to what you expect in some way, but also it's why people so strongly relate to it. George Carlin, at the end of his career, I think he just got better and better and better. And people say, oh, he got bitter and angry. I'm like, no, he did not care and was unfiltered. He was completely
and he was right.
Absolutely right. I mean, I see this stuff get posted now during the Trump era so much, and it is so prolific and on point. And I loved
and needs to be reviewed again because he was right from the get-go.
There's a lot of comics that I really, really love, but for me, Carlin's the king. I mean, he just is undeniably a truth.
Well, he's poetic, he's brutal, he's blunt, and he's right, and he's political. And thank you very much. I don't know why, but thinking of Carlin, I'm just thinking about. Excuse me.
Sure.
I'll be right back.
We'll hold that thought.
That's George Carlin's lawyer.
It's just Ghost. Oh my God! Do you like to look at I like to look at things that are not intended to be funny, or maybe they are. Like if I see the original Bad Lieutenant through the lens of a comedy, I'm in tears. If I look at the first half of Full Metal Jacket as a comedy, I'm dying. You know, because
I totally agree with that. I understand why a lot of people might look weird at that and say, "What do you mean?" But like for me. Not that all of his stuff I think is this, but I think there's a dark humor from like Lars von Trier's film.
Sure.
You know, like there's a movie he did called The House That Jack Built, which is
I know it. Yes.
You know, it's like an American Psycho serial killer type.
Let's go back to tragedy for a minute.
Let him finish his thought. He's finishing.
Well, it's just you know, that film was so dark and over the top though, but there's a scene where like this is basically the serial killer that just keeps getting away with it, and like he just isn't caught because the cops suck or comedy of errors. And there's a scene where he keeps trying to get rid of this body, and just things keep going wrong. He's leaving blood, and he finds it. He's got to go back and fix it, and all this stuff. And he's like, I'm going to get caught. And then when he's just basically given up and just resolved himself that he's going to get caught finally, it starts to rain and it washes away all of the evidence, and he just laughs. And I'm like, this is a dark comedy, like brutal, graphic film, and really fucking dark because it's about a serial killer. But boy, was it funny to me. And so
I missed what you're talking about because I had to answer the door.
Oh, is that it? We're talking about things that are so dark that.
Well, what was the film you're talking about?
Oh, it's called The House That Jack Built by
Lars von Trier.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Well, yeah, with Matt Dillon.
Yes, with Matt Dillon.
I saw it. It was great. I also was thinking about Shakes the Clown.
Oh yeah, incredibly funny and dark.
And dark. But also I was thinking right before I had to answer the door, Bill Hicks. That was just stand-up tragedy. It wasn't even funny. It was stand-up tragedy trying to disguise itself as comedy. His life was a tragedy.
Yeah.
But in the George Carlin, truth speakers, we had him, and he's still out there somewhere in the Etherville.
Look, there's a few sections that are dedicated to just people that I thought were really important to include, and they're Mitch Hedberg, George Carlin, and Bill Hicks. Those are the three that I'm like, they need to be in there because they're all not with us anymore, and they're all iconic. And a lot of the people, my friend Tom Rhodes, he and Chad Daniels, two good buddies of mine who are in the book, they toured with Mitch for years, and Stanhope knew him very well. People like George Carlin, Dana Gould interviewed George Carlin for Comedy Central back in the day, so there's a lot of stuff that kind of come full circle. Bill Hicks is in there quite a bit, and interesting way, a lot of people didn't know about Bill Hicks till after he was dead.
Yeah, of course.
Via a Tool record, because Tool sampled Bill Hicks and put him on, one of their albums. And so
I was just looking up like comedians who've been canceled, and I was shocked to see the Smothers Brothers were canceled. But if you think about it and go back to the Smothers Brothers, their show was pretty radical. Well, first of all, it was 60s pop culture. They had really good comedic characters on there. Mm-hmm. They were smooth yet kind of snide, and they were really kind of highly political just for the characters who they would highlight.
Well, what canceled them was their outspokenness against the Vietnam War and against people who were having a problem with integration. That's what got them canceled, because they looked like the Righteous Brothers. They looked like the boys next door, and so
they had great people on their show. I mean, it was very radical for the time. It was very of the time too.
Yes.
What year was that? Do you think it was like 67, 69?
Something like that. And I think it went until like maybe 72, 73.
And did Lily Tomlin get her start there?
Lily Tomlin got her start on Laugh-In.
Laugh-In.
Like the Goldie Hawn and all that, where she'd do like the one ringy dingy, like the phone operator, where she plugged it in. And Lily Tomlin's still an icon. She's
absolutely amazing.
Incredible.
And really always. What's interesting about her is it was her partner that wrote the material. Oh, she didn't write the material.
Really? I didn't know that.
She's come to some of my shows. I think she's amazing, but that's what's kind of interesting. It's like, well, actors don't write their own material. Comedians write their own material. Musicians write their own material.
Well, they a lot of times they'll have a
what
part. A lot of times comedians will have partners that they write it with. Yeah. What about physical comedians? Are there any ones that, that's a tough one, right? But there's some genius ones, right? Historically.
I would categorize Robin Williams as a physical comedian.
Okay.
He was pretty brilliant. If you're talking about somebody like a Carrot Top,
never am I talking about Carrot Top.
Well, JT, here's my joke I wrote.
Gallagher.
How come there's not a carrot? How come there's not a carrot bottom?
Maybe there is.
I think Carrot Top is a carrot bottom. Gallagher.
Yeah, Gallagher kind of, in my opinion, lost his mind towards the end of things. I
didn't even know his material at the end.
Yeah, he notorious.
How many watermelons can you smash?
Yeah, I don't. You know what his first gig was at Gallagher nationwide? It was opening for Kenny Rogers.
Oh, poor man.
Weird.
Think about that.
He lost his mind.
Yeah,
but obviously, like Three Stooges, Marx Brothers. There's historic physical comedian that touched vaudeville and all that stuff. And of course, Jim Carrey's a physical comedian on many levels too.
Well, and I have to bring up, not necessarily a physical comedian, but I have to bring up Red Skelton, who wrote 8,000 songs, did thousands of paintings.
Yeah.
Good thing he lived as old as he did. The Red Skeleton Hour, which I always have this memory in my mind of just the silent spot at the end where he's like an Emmett Kelly character. All I remember is that sad clownery.
Totally.
But Red Skeleton, his Wikipedia page says it all. I keep having to referring to it. I'm like, really? 8,000 songs? I am fucking slacking.
Crazy. I mean, there's two physical comedians that come to mind that I think were brilliant and unique. And I wouldn't dub either of them stand-up comics, but more just kind of comedians. One who I think is an amazing actor, and we lost him way too soon, is John Ritter.
Right.
John Ritter's pratfalls on Three's Company, I think, are so incredible. And he was a really brilliant physical comedian. And he could also, like him and Sling Blade, like incredible acting chops.
I love Sling Blade, Billy Bob Thornton. That's how he broke into Hollywood. It's such a good film. It's so dark.
Across the board.
Dwight Yoakam plays a great character in it.
Yoakam is incredible in that movie. But I thought John Ritter in that was heartbreaking as, like, you know, the gay friend. And, another person who I'm such a fan of him, but I hear he's very thorny, so I don't want to meet him intentionally. But if you go back to Saturday Night Live, Chevy Chase's pratfalls are, you know, incredibly. You don't think of him as a physical comedian off the bat, maybe, but he would be 110% into taking a fall.
Yeah, absolutely.
Would you consider Don Knotts one?
What's that?
Would you consider Don Knotts kind of somewhat of a physical?
His whole body was a
facial expressions and all that stuff.
I don't want to run too much time, but I have a great Don Knotts story if you want to hear it.
Let's hear it.
Yeah, let's definitely hear it.
So I did a show at a casino one time in Michigan.
Of course you did.
Of course I did. This is it was such a weird show, but I basically got hired to host a Battle of the Bands thing for very good money and also be a celebrity judge with a Hawaiian Tropic model and the lead singer of Grand Funk Railroad.
Oh, weird. Okay.
So fucking weird. But I'm in this job for the stories, and I was like, how much to do what? I'm all about that, sure. And they had a limo driver pick me up because it was a casino. And I was talking to the driver because, you know, I'm like, you pick up people for a casino. You must have worked with
come on.
Yeah. You know, I'm like, spill the dirt. Who were the cool comics? Who were the assholes? He actually said Carrot Top was one of the nicest. He said he said Carrot Top.
He better be looking like that.
He said Carrot Top needed to work out at the gym, and then he would talk to anybody. He just needed his time to get his reps in. And he said George Carlin was great. A few people were jerks, but what he said the two most legendary people he drove were Tim Conway, who he said was a total gentleman, and my favorite story was he drove Don Knotts 3 times. And I don't know what Don Knotts did on stage. I'm assuming just characters or, you know, Q&A or something, because I don't think he ever did stand up. But you know, Barney Fife in the flesh. And he said, I said, how was Don Knotts? He said he tipped very heavily, and every time I saw Don Knotts, he had a new, beautiful 25-year-old secretary with him. Which
you know, I mean, look, women like humor, and we accept that men will never be as beautiful as we are, as the only animals that aren't. I mean, we just do.
Sure. Yeah. And I just love that image of him being so, like, legendary for all the stuff he did, being such a big tipper and so generous, and also having a hot young thing in his arm.
Well, he probably tipped her very well as well. Let's just face fact.
And God bless her. But I thought that story was great.
Anyway, JT, I love your book, Doing Time, Comedians Talk Stand-Up. It's hilarious. It's heartbreaking.
Thanks.
It's a road as a road dog. I'm glad I did not take, although I think I'm fucking funny. I do stand-up tragedy.
Yeah, I agree.
In a sense, so do you, but you somehow manage to get a laugh out of it. People are just maybe too shy, although people are laughing at my new Dear Ivanka piece. I don't know why, but they are. But that's what we got. It's on Jawbone Press. It's out momentarily.
Yeah.
And good to see you back, if not in the flesh, at least on the Zoom, my friend.
Yeah,
and
thank you so much. Doingtimecomedy.com has all this stuff. Also jtcomedy.com and jawbonepress.com. They're based in London, but the book is out again July 8th on all formats everywhere. And I hope you dig it. It's their first non-music book ever. So that's exciting.
Well, it has a musical flow to the editing.
Thanks. I think that's just kind of how I am. And so there's a very specific intentional narrative. So it really means a lot that you like it.
The editing is amazing. 4 years of hard fucking work and about 4 hours of a good hard read. JJ Habersaat, my good friend, great graphic designer, doll maker, Dollar Tree, Hound Dog, Road Doggy, and Doing Time, his latest book.
Thanks for having me back to both of you. I hope to see you guys on the road at some point this year, and let's do some more shows.
I will.
Sounds good.
Will. Can't
Cool.
wait. We'll be in touch about that. Thank you.